Have you wondered what financial advisors actually think about finances? This is your sneak peek at the conversations within Financial Design Studio. Michelle Smalenberger, the CEO here, will be your host as you go behind the designs.
All right, welcome to Behind the Designs. Today's episode is the final interview of the four partners here at FDS. If you have been following along, you've met the CEO, the COO, the CIO, and today I'm going to introduce you to our Chief Financial Officer, the CFO, and tax specialist, Steve Smalenberger. Thanks for joining us today.
Hey, thanks for having me. I guess save the best for last, right?
Oh, there we go. I can't take sides, but I might.
As long as they don't listen to the podcast, no one will know.
We won't tell them to listen to this episode. Well, the reason that we've been doing this little series of interviews is because we want to introduce you to the person behind the professional. We spend our work days as financial experts, but we do that because we care about helping you dive into what matters most to you. So today's our chance to talk with Steve about this. So Steve, there might be a lot of people who don't know who you are. You're primarily kind of more behind the scenes, but you're also kind of a secret weapon that makes everything that we do possible. Why don't you go ahead and share just a little bit about your role here at Financial Design Studio?
Yeah. So how do I interact with clients? It is a lot of behind the scenes. It starts with tax planning, financial planning, tax preparation, bookkeeping for some of our business clients. So a lot of preparation, a lot of analysis, but then it interacts with the client when we're presenting an analysis, presenting a financial plan. They will see probably all four of us in a room together or a couple of us together as we're presenting the results. But yeah, that's kind of when I meet the client is in the presentation feature.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So kind of taking a lot of the information that they send, calculating that for tax purposes, whether that's forward looking or kind of backwards looking to complete a year. So how would you say how does your tax expertise serve clients on the planning side?
Yeah. So there really isn't an area of finances that doesn't somehow get touched in the tax area. So whether you spend, save, or give, there is a tax impact to any one of those decisions. And so that's where I get to be involved just about in every client situation because there's some part of their life that is impacted by taxes and or planning for taxes.
Yeah, it is kind of interesting. A lot of times we'll have conversations as a team, like when we're working on clients together. One of the great things is that it's not, just one advisor working with each client. All four of us really see from different points of view for all of our clients. So as we talk internally about a client situation and we're trying to see, okay, well, here's what we could do, with investments or what should we do on insurance? It is funny, even those two areas will come back and we'll be like, well, wait, what do their taxes look like? And so many times it does come back to, wait, we need to see how this affects the taxes, like the actions of these choices.
Yeah, it's funny, like a little behind the scenes even more when we're working on any plan or any analysis for a client. The four of us will throw it up on a screen and we kind of describe it to like four doctors in a room looking at the X-ray up on the screen. And then we'll each pick it apart or share our point of view at what we're looking at. And a lot of times it'll be Rob will see something from an investment standpoint and I think we should sell this. And then I'll chime in, well, here's the impact of doing that. And then Trevor and Michelle will chime in too. So yeah, it's four heads in a room kind of seeing it from different perspectives, but then kind of blending all that, marrying it all together to find the best result for our clients. And that's where it gets really fun.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting. One of the things though, because of that, I feel like tax is an area where, people I think will ask you kind of like, hey, Steve, tax season's over now, right? And, like on April 15th, you're like,
never ends.
It never ends. And I don't know that people understand that, but it's like April 15th comes and you think like that's the deadline, right? Sure. But then there's an extension for another, how many months?
Yeah, it's 6 months, but we're talking like filing deadlines, but then there's the planning season and then there's year end kind of there's always something going on, no matter what.
Yeah, but it is. It like gets to those final deadlines, and then it's kind of like, well, now tax planning for that year end is starting. So that's just something I notice, that it just never ends. I mean, same with like investments. It's kind of just like always there. But I think people kind of put it into this, oh, that happens like January through April, but it's really all year for you. So you literally live in a tax world.
And sometimes it gets a little confusing on, all right, we're dealing with a 2023 tax return, but we're worrying about current 2024, and we're thinking ahead to 2025. There's all different rates or phase outs or different calculations going on. And for me, sometimes I just have to like look at my cheat sheet. Okay, what is the rate? What is the contribution amount this year? Just so I kind of keep myself straight, because yeah, you are jumping in and out of different years, different rules, all of that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so there's like planning for client side, there's doing tax work for them, but then kind of share a little bit about what you do. So each of us, when I kind of, said I've interviewed all four of us, you're the CFO, Chief Financial Officer, and that's just basically our roles in the business, as, we have a business that we have to run as well as take care of clients. So what does that kind of describe that role a little bit for us, what you kind of do for the business with your tax background?
Yeah. So the CFO role is Chief Financial Officer. That's just a fancy title of keeping the book and records of our company straight and clean and readable. So that for us, that's keeping everything, for me, that's keeping everything in QuickBooks, keeping it updated, recording transactions, putting together a budget. So just as we're encouraging clients to know their cash flow, what's coming in, what's going out, budgeting for a year or a couple years ahead, we're doing that the same for our business. What are we spending? Where is it going? How do we maximize all of that? And when we're looking at our corporate budget, we're looking at a couple years at a time too. But then that's also daily operations. That's paying our staff. So payroll, so accounting, payroll, and then budgeting, all that kind of wrapped into one.
Yeah, no, but it's so helpful. And I think hopefully that's encouraging for people to hear, that we as a business are doing that, making sure we've got our emergency fund set aside as we're budgeting, making sure we're on track. And that really is something we do on an annual basis, but then monthly as we meet together. So for us, just like we're telling clients.
Yeah, we call those our leadership meetings, where just the four of us meet outside of the whole team and just talk about leadership areas. So one is the finances, so reviewing that.
Yeah. Yep. Nope. That's great. All right. So I think this gives people a really good idea of what you do here in the business. So one of the cool things about these podcast episodes with the partners has been that we're going to kind of go now behind the scenes, kind of more into like who you are, what you enjoy, even though tax might be one of those, but, how behind the scenes work kind of makes everything possible in order to make really good decisions as a business owner. So let's kind of take a step back, let's go behind the scenes and kind of hear a little bit more about you. Maybe just share a little bit. Everyone may not know, like as I'm interviewing you as a podcast guest.
Yeah, kind of unnatural. I'm more a curious person, asking the questions and then listening. So I guess I'm more in your role in this case, enjoy being the host versus being like the spotlight or on the hot seat is another way of kind of saying it.
So I guess take us back when you were younger. We kind of want to hear, a little bit how you got into accounting, how you, what you enjoyed, your interests, things like that, kind of like how you got to where you are today. So kind of take us a little bit or a long way back, like start with maybe 2 to 3 people that you feel like have kind of like helped you get to where you are, or kind of shaped like these interests or your, maybe kind of like your path to where you are today.
Yeah. So starting way back, did I always think I'd be an accountant? No, I did not. Ever since I was a little kid, I'm the oldest in my family. So the oldest sibling of 3. So I'm probably the most organized, or have everything in order, know where everything is, kind of would line up my cars, line up my toys, put everything away. So I like structure. I like things in its place. I always enjoyed math from a very young age. The funny thing about tax returns is it's very simple math. addition, subtraction, a little multiplication, division. So it's simple math, but it's the organizations, the structure I think I enjoy. So as I was growing up, did I know what I wanted to do? Not necessarily. I thought maybe there would be, maybe it would be a math teacher or being doing something with mathematics. And as I got older and took classes in college, that just didn't excite me as much. There was a time where I was considering maybe going into aviation, so being a pilot. All of my family, starting with both sets of grandparents, all aunts and uncles, parents, worked for United, so we were always around aviation. So I thought maybe being a pilot one day would be where I land. Because whenever we would fly standby. I would always listen to the pilot conversation between the pilots in the cockpit and the tower, and just really enjoyed that. I always thought they were really responsible. They had their checklist. They were responsible for everyone on the flight. They seemed well respected. So that seemed like it would be maybe something I would get into. Then when I started working at a golf course, a local country club where I caddied, was there 13 seasons. Part of me really wanted to become a pro golfer. So not a pro golfer on the tour, but a local head pro at a course where you were in charge of your pro shop. You taught lessons. You were just social with members. So that was another thing. But it wasn't until I went to college, the first year of school. You had to pick kind of your gen eds and then something in the major that you wanted to be. And I remember my mom saying, you know what, you should try this accounting class. I think you might like it. And that was really my first exposure to it. I had a wonderful teacher, Maureen Macbeth at College of DuPage, where she just made it fun. Even though we're talking numbers and accounting, which some people would say that's a bore, she really made it fun. And that was my first exposure. I remember my mom saying, you know, even if you don't get into accounting or finance, this will be a life skill that you will always have, will always use. It's not something that you'll ever feel like you waste your time. So yeah, it was that Accounting 101 at College of DuPage with Professor Macbeth that really kind of started the journey.
So from there, I guess, like, do you remember like why you didn't become a pilot or pro golfer? Like, did this class, you kind of just all of a sudden were interested in it? Explain that a little bit.
It's hard as a freshman, even a sophomore. You're like, how do I envision the rest of my life? And you're like, can I make this an occupation or a profession that I want to do the rest of my life? Can I see myself doing that? And there were reasons why each kind of faded in the distance, or accounting became more important.
That makes sense. Like, I could see accounting being a really practical one versus if you were going to become a pilot, like you need to go all in on it right now and start flying and all of those things. Same with golfing. If you're going to do that, you need to go all in on it.
And there was actually through a couple conversations with a member at the golf course I was really close with. He's like, hey, Steve, like, if you want to golf, you can always golf. You may lose that joy of golfing being around it every day as a head pro. Or if you want to get into aviation, you may enjoy it, but you will always be in the air versus buying a ticket and being able to fly wherever you want. So there were different subtleties that he kind of explained, where it helped me understand that, you know, you can fit into finance in any capacity, in any location, in any geography. You can fill in those other desires in other ways.
Yeah, that's a good way to ask it, though, of people, even, you know, other people who are listening that are trying to figure out, what do I do? If you're kind of saying like, oh, I have 3 different things I could do. Well, can you still do all of them, actually, just in different ways? And I know you still like to golf a lot, and we still fly plenty to see family and friends. So, yeah.
And you often hear it say, like, you want wherever you work or whatever profession you decide, you want that to be still a joy. And if you're around golf because that's your occupation, you may lose a little sense of that joy, in the sense you have to go in every day and not have to. So there's a balance, kind of of what do I really enjoy and what do I really enjoy doing. And yeah.
So tell us a little bit more about, because you actually got some insight into that. So you were around golf a lot. So tell us kind of your background, why, you told us a little bit about like maybe being a pilot and why, but tell us like, how did you kind of get into golf? What was that like? Were you able to see like what that would be like if you were doing it more?
Yeah. So growing up, we had a River Forest Country Club. It's in Elmhurst, Illinois. We lived about a block and a half from that. We could ride our bikes to, basically spend the whole summer there working. So I remember my grandfather brought me when I was 11, maybe 12. I can't remember exactly the year, but we went to that first orientation, met the caddy master, and kind of that was my first introduction to golf outside of hitting golf balls in the backyard with him. So my grandfather was a huge golfer. He's the one that got me into it. Learned using his clubs. And people often, that little side note, I'm left-handed, and people are always like, well, why don't you golf lefty? And that's because my grandfather is right-handed. He gave me his clubs. So do everything in life left-handed except for golf.
That's funny.
Yeah. And so started off caddying. So carrying clubs, helping members around the course, eventually where you're counting yardage, you're maybe suggesting clubs, you're reading putts, just helping them from first hole to the 18th hole enjoy their day. And that started off as 11 or 12-year-old through like 23, 24 after college. And it was like one of the best jobs I think anybody could have in the summer. Gave me some great exposure to the game, some amazing friends, amazing members who are still important to me in my life. And just a wonderful experience. So yes, that meant as I established myself there, that meant rising in the ranks of a caddy. So from like the little B caddy to an A caddy, eventually like an honor caddy, where people are requesting you or asking you to be their caddy in different tournaments. And then in the evenings, I was asked by the head pro there to work in the cart barn. So when members would bring their clubs back or the carts from using it throughout the day, we would store that and just close the place down. Worked at the range, worked in the pro shop for a little bit. And then one year even filled in as the caddy master when there was a change. So I kind of spent 12, 13 summers there every day, all day. It was amazing though.
Everyone should know that even though you aren't caddying today, you do still caddy for Emma and I, and you still have all of your skills and are still used to like carrying double bags. And so you haven't lost those skills. That's for sure.
Yeah. And really that's where I kind of fell in love with golf. There were so many times where you would just have deep conversations walking down the fairway. But it also helped me learn other skills like people reading. Like when do you just need to kind of walk ahead and give that person some time to cool off after a bad shot, or when to speak into them and kind of encourage them after a good or bad shot. During even tournaments, like when to kind of talk them down and hey, this is a big moment, this is a big shot, but in the grand scheme, like, you know what you're doing. Just hit one in the middle of the green and make the putt. So all those things, people skills were really, that's where I would say I probably developed it the most, just learning to read people and know the moment when you need to do, when and what to do in a certain situation.
Yeah. No, those are really valuable skills though, because no one's out there telling you, hey, get their next club. Hey, this is what club they should be using, all of those unique things. So.
Yeah. And I think, looking back now, even reflecting right now as we're talking, that was my first exposure to being a self-employed or a business owner. Like as a caddy, you have to represent yourself in a manner that people want you to work for them. So each member would experience the best side of Steve. Like, hey, he dresses well, he's professional, he carries the clubs, he knows where he's going, he gives me good advice and yardage around. So like, from beginning to end, I was marketing, advertising myself. And then on the flip side, being like a business owner. When I got paid or got like the grading at the end of the day, like that was something that as a child, like I was keeping track of and recording, like, oh, who did I caddy for today? What rating did they give me? How much did I make? And I had this whole little journal where I kept all that. So yeah, that's kind of a business owner in some sense. How do I improve? How do I do it better next time?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you still have that journal today?
I do, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. So what would you call that? Your journal of loops, the loops that you caddied?
Yeah. I just kept it in like a tin box. Yeah. Kept all the cards.
Well, that's cool. Yeah. I think those are cool things though, because you think back on it, like there is a lot that you learned. I think a lot of times people don't realize how much they learn from experiences and their work experience more than sometimes just the book learning and the knowledge that you gain. It's how you're applying it or learning it firsthand. So
yeah, I'm very much a hands-on learner. Like if I'm out there and can experience it, and even in the good moments or bad, like that's how I tend to learn the best.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. So we can kind of see like you like checklists, even the potential occupations you could have gone into. Like I can see how a lot of those can kind of shape and kind of like steer you towards accounting, like just those qualities. I could definitely see that because those are really useful in accounting. Talk us through how you kind of, so now after, getting through school, you started that first course. Talk us through kind of some of your early experience working, some of those jobs, I guess. How did you kind of end up, because there's a lot of different types of accounting. So kind of walk us through a little bit of how, maybe you got to the type of accounting you're doing today.
Yeah. So after school, after I graduated, one of the members at the course had a CPA firm. I interned there. And it was a great experience, just learning what is it like now to transfer those educational skills to the office setting. So that was my first real office job outside of what you'd call like the golf course was the office. This was like, professional attire, sitting at a desk, working at a computer. First real internship experience. And then that converted into a full-time job, worked there for a couple of years, made a change, worked at another CPA firm, eventually working at a third with a good friend from church who had his own CPA firm, and had kind of just grown where he needed some help, knew that I was in between jobs, and hired me one year for tax season, and it lasted 4 or 5 together.
So what were you doing at each of those? Like, starting out, were you doing tax prep right away?
Yeah. So in each of those positions, tax was their primary service offering. A couple of them had audit, where they would audit some of the clients, or they were an internal auditor. They would go into and review the books and records of their clients. And I quickly realized that isn't what I wanted to do. People never view the auditor, whether it's internal or external, very favorably. It's someone looking over your shoulder and seeing where you messed up. And I knew I didn't like that. So on the tax side, you're representing the client. You're trying to reduce their taxes as much as possible, but also keep them out of trouble, keep them out of jail, as we like to kind of joke. And that's making sure that everybody pays what they're required to pay, but no more than they have to. So in some sense, you're on the client side, helping them, reduce their taxes as much as possible.
Yeah. So I guess when you started and you were doing tax prep right away, were there things that you saw like in each of those? And I think that's normal, especially right out of college, where you start, a job and you might see, oh, here's what I like, here's what I don't like. Were there things that you were kind of seeing? Because that's what you're still doing today. So kind of why did you change over the years to where you are? Because you're still doing similar things. What were some things that you saw that you kind of thought, maybe this could be done better, or things that you saw that were done well that you've kind of maybe shifted to?
Yeah. So whenever you leave a job and go somewhere else, it's usually because I don't like this, or I'm wanting this. All my experiences at all the firms were good. It taught me a lot. I was able to learn processes and interactions with clients, and behind the scenes, what has to get done from the beginning of tax season till the end? How does a tax return start? And then how do you kind of build it, prepare it, and then eventually file it? So in each of those, I learned what I liked. I didn't like a larger firm in the sense where there were multiple partners, multiple staff, and there was a lot of back and forth. It just felt very inefficient to me, and I knew I didn't like that. I also worked at some smaller firms where it was just me and the owner, and it was a 2-person team, and we would work through it. You get immediate feedback if something was done wrong or maybe just misinterpreted or it could be improved. You got immediate feedback, and I think I thrive in a situation like that.
Yeah. Were there any that kind of stand out to you where, so maybe as the business owner was managing the business, that you kind of stood out to you saying, oh, I really respect these things and how they're running their business? Because I remember when we were dating, and you were just starting at your first, job out of college, just kind of going through a tax season. I mean, a lot of times we wouldn't see each other until like midnight because you could be working until that late. And then you were going back in at 8 a.m. And so it was like you saw the long hours that are possible.
And I think everybody kind of accepts that. Oh, it's tax season. It has to be this. And we'll see you in 4 or 5 months. When you were asking about people like who have influenced me outside of parents, I named my professor as one. Mike Whalen would be the second. He was someone I knew from church that really, I was his first employee ever, and outside of family. And when I started working with him, it was an amazing experience because he was like, you know what, we're gonna get this done. We don't have to be here 9 to 5. That's kind of all these stereotypes of what tax season is like or accounting is like. We're gonna throw it out the window. So he would at 9 to 5. He was there, got his work done. We got more work done, just the two of us, than some of the larger firms I was at prior with large teams. So, just noticing that where there could be inefficiencies, maybe breakdowns in processes, he and I would talk about that all the time. And how do we improve this right now and fix it? You don't have to run it up the flagpole to management, get the approval, then get the team together to figure out how do you do it right now?
Yeah, it's so interesting to have like that mix of, or the ability of, okay, we have a team, like even as I'm thinking our team functions, we have the ability where all 4 of us sit down before a meeting, we want to prep, we want to, really think through things, but there are things that happen, on a day-by-day basis where clients, we need to jump on a phone call with them or a Zoom meeting to really figure out something right now, and that's right away. And so we're really saying, hey, these are the 2 people, that they're disciplines, like maybe it's investments and taxes that need to be in on this. And so a couple of us, join together. So it's kind of this, nice balance of being able to have the full team and being able to really dig in and talk through things in depth, but also that flexibility of saying, well, wait, we are the top of the flagpole. Like this is management and we're going to help make these decisions and we're going to do it right now, because we can also think like that too, very quickly, because that's how life is. And you need to be able to make decisions really quickly. So I think it's interesting, as you are working through your career of, I know I'm doing tax preparation, but you are really experiencing different, owners of businesses and how they run their businesses. And those stood out to you of, wow, I really respect these things. So that I think then you were able to see like, this is possible. It's possible not to have to, be up all hours of the day and night doing tax returns.
Yeah. And I remember something else Mike said is we have to get an A on every test, meaning we have to build in quality control checks and balances like that, like the pilot checklist when he's walking around the plane checking things. That's so he knows that everything is good and safe and in order before he fires it up. The same with the tax return. Before it ever leaves the door or is in the hands of the client, we've done all the quality control checklists to make sure what we're preparing is A+.
Yeah, no, that's great. Okay, so take us, I think you had one more role before we kind of started our business. Explain that one a little bit, kind of more straight from like all tax prep to that role.
Yeah, so after working with Mike for 5 years, there was an opportunity to join the firm that you were with. And they were looking for someone to kind of marry more tax planning and helping clients financially with tax forecasting. So I explained to Mike the situation. He blessed it, and I joined you for 5 years at a firm. And there it was my first experience to not only doing some tax returns, so continue to do a handful of those, but more taking a client situation, taking their statements, their distributions, their financial plan, and preparing an analysis for what's this going to look like now with these inputs or these variables. And that was a stretch for a lot of tax preparers. Forecasting, analysis, kind of looking ahead is kind of unnatural or counterintuitive. Accountants mostly are historical. They're looking back. They're reporting on what has happened. And this was my chance to kind of, like you, take something and now project it, throw it out into the future. What if we make some changes? How is this going to look? And that, for me, is really fun. It's kind of another piece in that puzzle. And when people ask, like, why do I enjoy what I do? Because every situation, every client that we're working with is a different story. I kind of describe it as a puzzle. No matter how many pieces, whether it's a 25, 50, 100-piece puzzle, you kind of start with those easy things, the corner pieces or the outside pieces of that puzzle, and you put it together. And I would say financial planning, tax planning is a lot like that. Do they have an emergency fund, life insurance, estate planning? Those are kind of our corner pieces, but the rest of it is based on facts and circumstances. And as you're piecing that together, you're starting to see the picture of what that puzzle is going to be.
No, that makes sense. So I guess was there something, even in that period where you're really trying something new, because that wasn't established there? That was you coming up with, what does this look like? How do I do this? And even getting comfortable with it from the standpoint of, I'm used to kind of more of this historical accounting. What was it that you kind of, or what's something that you took away from there that you learned? And obviously, like, that was a big thing that we took away, and wanting to start our business was like, this is so valuable.
Yeah. So I remember when Mike Kabarick asked us to kind of run with this idea. It was taking things that I was familiar with. So still using the same tax preparation software, but using a different module within it that was the tax analysis. And then emailing, working with clients, sometimes even inviting them in and doing some of this tax planning on the fly. So building as much as I could, but then asking them questions like, what do you think? What do you think the year is going to look like in this situation with your rental property? Or they would ask, what if I sell this house? Like, what's the impact of this? Or what if I make these contributions to my retirement? Or what if and then we were changing that on the fly, and like clients could then see the impact of their decisions. And that's when they really got engaged. And that was where we really saw the kind of the importance of tax planning within the financial planning area.
So I know this was something, you really enjoy golf. That was something that, at that firm you were able to do a lot of. Was that something you enjoyed, kind of being on the other side of it now?
Yeah. So in each of the prior employment experiences, it was really kind of just working behind the scenes, sometimes meeting the client, sometimes not. But in this last at Kabarick Financial, like, we did a lot of client entertaining or client shared experiences. So Mike was a member at Medina, so we would take clients there frequently. So it meant being able to talk through, sometimes they'd ask questions, tax things in the golf cart or walking down a fairway or over lunch. And it was a very different experience. So I relied on a lot of my caddying days, seeing business happen on the golf course and how it's kind of when you do have a shared experience, it just kind of breaks down barriers where people are they talk easier, they're more relaxed. Kind of walking around the course and going through 18 holes of golf is your shared experience.
Yeah. I think it's so interesting how I think when people look back maybe through their careers, through their childhood and how they got where they are. I think what's cool is when you can kind of see some of these common themes that are weaved together. So like for you, golf, but also tax, a lot of the similar things, just kind of like those personality things like checklists, kind of liking structure. I just think it's interesting how they kind of weave together, but there's also, enjoyment in that because you enjoyed playing golf. And so now when you're able to do it in business, like it's fun because it keeps you like having fun and not making it all work and no play,
Exactly. I say I learned a lot from Mike Kabarick in that sense. He's like, this day is about the client. It's not about us. So make this fun for them. So asking questions, helping them enjoy the day. The one thing that he shared though is he's like, never lose on purpose to the client. Don't let them win because they'll know that you let them win. So if you're having a good day, play your best because they want to see you do well too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it's fun, right? And you play up to each other's level. So yeah, can help. That's funny. So are you, I guess, thinking back in that last experience where you were kind of coming up with tax planning and what that looked like and really being able to do more of these forward looking projections, which was very new, like at the time. I guess, was that something that you like doing, kind of figuring things out, kind of working on little things, seeing how things work?
Yeah. So I would say Mike gave us a lot of room just to kind of build what we thought we needed, a lot of flexibility in that. And in the sense where it hadn't formally existed at the firm, we had to create what we thought the end product should be. So that meant researching what are other firms doing? What is some processes for tax planning? I guess in all of our offerings that we've ever had, Shell, you and I have always said, what do we want out of it as we were the client? And let's create that. So it was, all right, here's the report. Give it to each other. Is this something a client would want? Is this something I would want? Do I get value out of it? So a lot of it was, if I was in their shoes, what would I want at the end of the day? And that's kind of how we developed it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's great. So I guess kind of having all of these experiences to build on and seeing a lot of people run their own business, like why do you feel like, you kind of decided to start your own business, or why did that even sound attractive or interesting to you?
Yeah, I that's a question we get asked a lot. And when we decided to do it on our own, it was the best thing we could do for our family, in the sense that we needed, having a young family, we needed the flexibility of being able to work the hours that we needed to, be able to work from home or remotely or the office as needed. And being self-employed allowed us to do that. So that each of us relied on our past experiences, what we liked or didn't like at prior firms, things that were done well, or we would say maybe poorly, that we could learn from and implement. And then also our strengths and areas that we are good at. We could pull those and rely on those in what we're providing.
Did you think you would ever start your own business, like growing up, or even before then? Were you like, yeah, that's something I'm absolutely going to do?
No, I don't. I wouldn't say I was. I'm not really the entrepreneurial kind of person, but I could see like being support or being like someone's like right hand, just like behind the scenes or even in person or in the front limelight, but not ever really starting something from scratch. That never really thought that would be what I would do well at, but we proved ourselves wrong, right?
Yeah, that's right. Well, I don't think we didn't set out in our careers to say we're going to, there are people, like an Elon Musk who know they're going to do something and they're setting out to do that. I think we're not afraid of that, but I think we just always thought, okay, we can be in a firm making a difference doing those things. So it was just, yeah, I think there was just a point in time where we said, okay.
Yeah. And for you and I personally, like I would say it was the first in our families. Parents, aunts, uncles on all sides worked for larger, established, private, public, even governmental jobs where you had 401ks or pension plans, benefits, time off, vacation time, all of that, where we were the first.
Yeah. Nope, it's true. And I mean, even those conversations trying to, convince, like when you were saying, like, I guess that was a question I wanted to ask you, is how did you kind of evaluate this? Like, do you feel like you evaluated this question or this decision of starting our own business?
Yeah. How did I evaluate it? Pros and cons. Here's what you get out of it. Here's what would be hard. You and I prayed about it, talked about it, asked a lot of others that we knew were self-employed. Even some of our my prior boss, Mike Whalen, has asked his opinion, just things like that. Like people that we knew had started jobs or left jobs. I remember even asking some friends at church, like Scott Lewis, like asking him, what is it like to be self-employed, starting your own business, and just hearing from other people's experiences. While sometimes it may be helpful, others it may not apply, still hearing other people's stories and how we could envision ourselves in our own story was helpful.
I remember we even had a mock conversation with Scott of saying, okay, having that conversation with our boss at the time of, okay, we're going to be we're leaving. And even just practicing that conversation with him was something that, we wanted to be sure that we were prepared for whatever could come up, whatever, questions or whatever. And that was helpful, so yeah, just any of those things that you can prepare ahead of time. I remember that was really valuable for us. Yeah.
I think especially hard for us is that we're going from two paychecks to really none. And just, all right, we can't, it's not like I can rely on my spouse and her full-time job or your spouse and his full-time jobs. Like, no, we're both in this. And what if it doesn't work out? What then? Kind of always have that in the back of your head, but you're like, we're going to push through this and we're going to make it work too.
Yep. Yeah, it had to work out. It wasn't really an option. And like we said, that was kind of worst case. If it didn't work out, worst case, we go back to jobs. We know what we're making and what we're doing. So if that was the worst case, why not give it a shot? So I guess now that, we have our own business, you've been doing this, you kind of, you lead all of our tax planning, tax preparation and filing. What, I guess, how has it kind of changed your tax knowledge or just the way you anticipate things like that? Any difference to when you were just doing it for someone else?
Yeah. So in some sense, you don't have anybody to ask. While I could ask you and Trevor and Rob, I have to know it, and I have to be able to answer to myself that I know it. So I remember back at Caberic Financial, when we started offering that tax planning, there were a lot of areas I just wasn't familiar with yet, but I had to become. So lots of reading, lots of research, lots of just repetitions. And the more you do it, the more you just feel comfortable in it. I think it really strengthened my research side of where do I go? What do I turn to when I don't know an answer? It could mean some online research. It could mean taking some courses, either in person or online. It's having a good set of colleagues or those that you trust in their prior experience to ask questions when you don't know. And also admitting that you don't know. A lot of times that's also hard for accountants, is you're seen as a source of knowledge for everything. And just saying, you know what, I don't know, but I'll look into that.
I think any professional, that's hard to admit when you don't know something. And yeah, so by having that group that you can bounce off of people to figure it out. So I guess, what would you say keeps you going? So, I think people always kind of joke, no kid really grows up being I want to be an accountant, saying that's what they want to be when they grow up. It usually is more of the pilot, the golfer, kind of more, maybe some of those more flashy things. So I guess, what keeps you going in accounting? What is it, each day that you wake up wanting to do it?
So actually, I saw a funny YouTube video. It wasn't meant to be funny, but I saw an interview the other day of Freddie Freeman, Los Angeles Dodgers MVP of the last World Series. He wanted to grow up to be an accountant and ended up playing baseball and becoming an amazing, probably future Hall of Famer. But it's because he was surrounded by accountants, his father and uncle, and they had a firm. So he always pictures himself as being a future accountant. But you're right. A lot of times you don't know what you want to be until you grow up. And then, but what do I enjoy about it today is so it's not the numbers, it's not making sure they're in the right spot of a tax return, it's not the projections, it's taking all of that, but then presenting it or talking it through with the client, seeing how they can change their life now to improve in the future or change behaviors so that they don't experience something that they have in the past. It's really the personal side of it. It's taking those numbers and those stories and living them out with the client.
Yeah, kind of making one decision. I think what's great is you show someone kind of a before and after. Here's kind of like side by side. Here's a few options you have to change the tax impact for the year. And so what's interesting is they get to make different decisions and you're showing them that. So
yeah, we like to kind of, here's last year, here's 3 different scenarios, kind of here's what we think you should do. Here's kind of a happy medium. And here's maybe a few that you can decide on. And when they can see that and see the impact of what their decisions will result in, they buy into it. And that's the fun thing. That's the cool thing, is when you can see them engage and really understand what they're looking at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So one of the other things that you get to do, or you've gotten to do, like as our business has grown, one of the other roles that you've kind of taken on is training. There's, I think, tax preparation. Like when you do a great job at it, people know they can count on you. They're always referring people. And, I think a lot of accountants are kind of aging out of the profession. So people are looking for new accountants, things like that, just over the years. So that part of what you do has really grown in number, but we always, kind of going back to, you don't have to be doing this at midnight or 3 a.m. And so we want to be sure that you have support. So this has kind of been something that you've, trained people to help you with tax preparation. So one of the things that's interesting is, you had kind of said different things that you might want to do, but also that checklists are helpful. Like these are all things that I see you using when you're training, Edward right now to help with tax preparation. Walk us through a little bit of that. Do you enjoy that kind of that coaching, training someone else to now kind of be a support for you? How do you learn? Kind of explain a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I'd say there's a little bit of a teacher in me. When I can explain something in a way where someone gets it or understand it, that brings a lot of joy to me. So teaching Edward, he's a family friend of ours who had no experience to accounting or taxes, walking him through, here's a W-2. And here's where you look on the W-2, box 1 is your wages. And here's where it goes on the tax return, page 1 of the 1040. And doing a couple repetitions of that. And then breaking it out to, all right, here's now a pay stub. And here's when you get multiple pay stubs, it's summarized on the W-2 and kind of connecting the dots from an actual paycheck to a W-2 to the tax return and the impact of that. That's fun, where you can see people who maybe didn't have any exposure to it before start to understand it. And then you add in different things. So yeah, I enjoy it.
What's something you've learned teaching someone else? Like maybe you've learned about yourself or just how you teach?
Yeah. So when I was thinking through the curriculum, so I worked with Edward here at the middle to end of summer for the last 3 or 4 months in preparation for year end and then tax return season, kind of reverse engineered that curriculum. What do I need him to know in the end? And then how do we get there? So it's kind of structure again. And I can't expect him to know what this end product is unless I have building blocks, baby steps. So starting real small and then building upon it. Then the next week, building upon that and building upon that. But throughout all those lessons, it could get terribly boring. Tax returns, tax accounting can be a terribly boring concept or process. So learning to add creativity and having I call them scavenger hunts or Easter egg hunts, where I'm here's a tax return. I've thrown in some things. I need you to go find them or go find the errors. And here's some clues. So creativity in that process, knowing how to keep it fresh and exciting, to keeping it structured, to keeping it on plan so that at the end of the training, he's where I want him to be. So there will be seasons of, I need some patience in this, to I need to be like the encourager. I need to be excited about it myself so that he's excited. To also people reading. So kind of reverting back to some of my caddy days, like knowing how to interpret what he's going through right then. Like, is he getting it, not getting it? Is he scared to ask the question, embarrassed to ask the question? Do I need to ask him the question so I know where he's at? All of that.
Yeah, no, that's great. I just think it's interesting because like all these different skills, like you use them in different ways, like all the structure and the checklist, like yes, are important to you and your professional, work, but as you're teaching someone else, and now also you're kind of building upon like all of these lessons that you've learned from past bosses and business owners. And so I'm sure all of that is kind of like in the back of your mind too, like how am I teaching and showing them so that they're experiencing me and what I'm teaching them, just like I did of those, that I experiences I really enjoyed.
Yeah. And also knowing, and I guess being open and vulnerable and transparent. Hey, Edward, here's the areas that I always missed when I was first starting out. I didn't understand the health savings account. And when someone did that through their employer, through outside, just through their cash flow and how that's reported on the W-2 or 1099 or the 1040 to actually the form. So yeah, all of those things become really important when you're a teacher because they need to know that you sometimes don't know everything or didn't know everything, but it's through those learning experiences that you became who you are in it today. And you're doing it in a way, you're representing yourself in a way that they're encouraged by or they're looking forward to, because I'm creating his future experience that he's going to look back at and be like, that was an amazing time that I worked with FDS. And if he would ever leave or go somewhere else or start his own firm, like that he could say, like, I learned so much working with Steve and Michelle and the team that he's in a better place than he ever was before he met us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I think those are really great skills. So knowing, I guess to kind of wrap up like this episode, knowing that you enjoy golfing, what are courses that you've played? Maybe some, big courses that you've like, what are some of your top courses you've ever played? And then some courses that you haven't played that you wish that you could someday.
Okay. I wasn't ready for that. I would say I've probably been around this, caddies call it a track, around River Forest Country Club 1,000+ times. But knowing a course intimately like that, that's always fun to play. So River Forest Country Club would be one. Medina Country Club was another, where when you step on it, you're like, there's a lot of history here. This is cool. This is knowing that PGAs and Ryder Cups have all been played there, like that adds to it. I got to play Whistling Straits with my brother-in-laws, celebrating my 40th. That was really special, and that was cool. So those are courses I really enjoyed playing. Ones I would want to play. Wow. Like we went to see the Pro-Am, so at Pebble Beach, that was really cool, just walking that course. So getting to play it would be fun. I've heard the courses out in Bandon Dunes are really fun out on the West Coast. That would be neat. But sometimes it's just playing a local kind of hidden gem too that I didn't know about, and hearing it from someone like, hey, you got to go play here. This is a kind of a secret little course, hidden gem that no one knows about. It's worth playing. So sometimes it's something that's not even big or well known. It's just a good track, as they would say.
I think one of the things I remember when we were dating was we golfed a lot, which I had never golfed, but it was fun. So I enjoy it, and I still enjoy it today. But it was funny because, we would kind of play like evenings, and it was like the sun setting. I just remember you always saying like, oh, this is my favorite time of day. So it's like if you're like coming around on hole 18 and it's like the sunset is just like beautiful and it's like a nice summer night. I just remember you saying that. So I'm like, that's such a golfer thing to say. So, but yeah, it's cool.
You get to see the beautiful sunset, the long shadows, all of that. Yeah. I'd say evening golf is my favorite, especially late summer.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Steve. I think this is really fun to kind of get to know your background, kind of like how you think, kind of your history, your experience. So yeah, thanks for sharing all of this with us.
Well, thanks for having me. This was a lot of fun.
Good. All right. Well, thanks for joining us, Steve. And if you're still listening, thank you for making it this far. If you're curious to hear the other interviews from our team, check out episodes 34, 42, and 47 of our podcast. One of the strengths of this team is how unique each of our stories are. If you want a team to come alongside you and take care of each facet of your finances, reach out. We would love to see how we can bring confidence to your finances. You can schedule a meeting on our website, financialdesignstudio.com, and we'll talk to you again in a couple of weeks.
Thanks for listening. To find any links or resources related to this episode, check out our show notes. Your host was Michelle Smalenberger, a certified financial planner and CEO. The guests featured are from Financial Design Studio, a team of experienced, fiduciary, fee-only advisors based in Chicago. Anna Lewis is the executive producer of the Behind the Designs podcast. And as always, for more information about Financial Design Studio and who we are, check out our website, financialdesignstudio.com. And final note, no content discussed on this podcast should be taken as financial advice. Financial Design Studio accepts no responsibility for your individual choices. We'll see you in the next episode.